Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Terp Family Fundamentals webinar series. My name is Danielle Walker, and I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Parent and Family Affairs here at the University of Maryland. For those that are new, this webinar series is intended to help you become informed consultants on campus resources so that you can better support your Terps. Today, we're joined by staff in the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. They will discuss the various organizations here at Maryland, the process for joining those organizations, as well as how you can support your Terp as they navigate this process and consider joining. If you find that you have questions, please feel free to submit those via the Q&A feature. To access the Q&A feature, you can find the two conversation bubbles towards the bottom or the side of your screen, depending on where you have your toolbar. It should also say Q&A. If you don't see that, you may need to click the three dots to expand your toolbar. This will allow you to submit your questions, and we will be able to see those and help respond. To help us answer the questions that the majority of you have, if you see a question that you also would like the answer to, instead of typing that same question, please use the upvote feature. So select the thumbs up icon. This is an upvote, and so we'll be prioritizing those questions with the most upvotes. Also, be sure to look at the answered tab within the Q&A because that's where you'll find the answers to the questions that you've asked. We will do our best to respond to as many questions as we can while we're together today. Lastly, this webinar will be recorded and available on the Terp Family YouTube channel following the session today. So if you miss anything or you want to share this with other members of your family, including your student, you'll be able to do that from our YouTube channel. So with that, I will hand off the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So glad to have you here with us. My name is Hamed Sirleaf.
And my name is Jordan Borkert.
And we're both coordinators for advising and programming within the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at the University of Maryland. We're so excited to have you here today to be able to help you learn about everything you need to know about fraternity and sorority life and how your Terp can engage with our fraternity and sorority community. So the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life, fun fact, is actually the nation's largest fraternity and sorority life office. So we have 29 staff members that help support fraternities and sororities through direct advising, diversity and inclusion, housing and facilities, sexual assault prevention, and other programmatic areas. So you can definitely know that Maryland does care about fraternities and sororities and wants to be able to support them however they can. The mission of the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life is we believe that fraternities and sororities have the potential to be the most transformative part of the college experience. And our mission here is to do everything that we can to make this happen. So just a quick breakdown of what fraternity and sorority life looks like here. Trust me, we will get through every organization that we have in a few minutes. But we have 59 organizations that are represented by 4 governing councils. So governing councils are basically groups of organizations that help to manage each group of fraternities and sororities that we have here at Maryland. So we have the Interfraternity Council, the Multicultural Greek Council, the National Panhellenic Council, and the Panhellenic Association. So we'll break those down later on in the webinar. So one big thing here at Maryland is that we do care about academics in our community. So any student that is interested in joining a fraternity and sorority at the university has to have a 2.5 GPA and 12 credit hours. So those that are transferring in do have some similar requirements that if you want to have some more information about that, you can ask at the end of the webinar. Also, each fraternity and sorority chapter here must comply with policies that are known as chapter expectations to remain a recognized organization. And Jordan will break that down for you.
Thanks, Hamed. And just as Hamed kind of mentioned, our chapter expectations program are not only ways to hold our groups accountable, but to allow them to have a comprehensive education and experience with fraternity and sorority life, right? They should get some of those benefits, which we'll talk about earlier, but we also want to make sure that we're intentional in holding the members in our community accountable to learning and understanding areas in the following: alcohol and other drugs, diversity and inclusion, hazing prevention, sexual assault and sexual assault prevention, mental health and wellness, as well as making sure that each member has 5 hours of community service per member per school year. These chapter expectations programs are actually something that they can complete within the academic year, and they only have to do one program or multiple programs to reach our attendance requirement of 90% of each chapter. So no matter if your chapter is 140 members or just 12 members, 90% of that membership will make sure that they have some understanding and knowledge around these 5 areas, as well as doing, 5 community service hours within an academic year. We want to make sure that they're really meeting the values and the importance of what fraternity and sorority life is. And these areas are just aspects of fraternity and sorority that we want students to appreciate and understand. Other things for chapter expectations, there are some different paperwork things, different programming things that each chapter will have to do. Each individual member typically doesn't have a lot of ownership around all of this. The leadership of the chapter does, but know that your member, if they did join, they would every year have a program or a conversation or a dialogue around these 5 areas, as well as is encouraged to go back into the community, whether at the University of Maryland, College Park, Prince George's County, state of Maryland itself, and be able to work with the community and give back for 5 hours or more within an academic year. Because we're talking about fraternity and sorority life, and one aspect that people have some hesitation around, we want to bring out and discuss a little bit around what hazing is and the hazing policy at the University of Maryland. So hazing generally is a fundamental violation of human dignity. It's strictly prohibited at the University of Maryland. And the following conduct is defined as hazing when it's engaged in, whether it's on or off university premises. So it could be happening off campus or on campus. If it's for the purpose of admission, initiation, or continued association with the group or the organization. So our definition, and most definitions around hazing, is that it is recklessly or intentionally engaging in or enabling an act or situation that subjects another person to a risk of physical harm, emotional distress, humiliation, degradation, harm from unreasonable requirements which interfere with a student's ability to function as a student, right? They're students first, and we want to make sure that whatever they're doing in their fraternity or sorority experience, that there's no interference with their ability to be a student and be academically excellent, which includes financial requirements outside of any kind of membership dues or monies that they need to pay, diminish physical or mental capacity, and causing or encouraging another person to violate any law or university regulation, right? We don't want them to be encouraged or asked to do something that's against the law. That just doesn't make sense. And then finally, right, the implied or express consent of another person is not a defense under this section. So I'll say that again. The implied or express consent of another person is not a defense under this section. So even if a student decided, yeah, I would be interested in participating in something that could be considered hazing, that's not a defense for us to hold a group or members accountable for hazing. So even if people are for it or want to give express consent to be a part of it, they're still going to be held accountable, because hazing, as we kind of talked about, right, is a violation of human dignity. whether if somebody agrees or not, doesn't agree with it. So you're probably wondering then, okay, so if something does happen, which we hope doesn't, right? What resources does the university offer? Well, here are some really great resources that University of Maryland offers. The Office of Student Conduct provides educational programming and reporting anonymously if a student prefers. We have a University Hazing hotline, so 24/7 days a week. We have a duty phone that is staffed by one of our professional staff members in the Department of Fraternity Sorority Life. So on any day of the week, no matter what time, if they call that number 240-432-6053, they're going to get an answer from one of our staff members. And we'll be able to help them kind of navigate the situation, be able to answer questions and offer support. And just to be there if there is an emergency that they want to call about, or they want to report something around hazing. So a student in the Fraternity Sorority Life community can call that number at any point if there is an emergency, and one of us will be on the line to help and support them 24/7. There's also, I mentioned the anonymous hazing report form, which can be accessed at hazing.umd.edu, as well as there's a hazing prevention committee that the university has charged, and you can find more information at hazing.umd.edu. So we kind of talked about some of maybe the hesitations you might have around fraternity sorority life and hazing, but we also want to be able to share with you there's so many benefits for joining a sorority or a fraternity, especially at the University of Maryland. These are just some of the values that someone can receive, but if they're looking to, well, why should someone join a fraternity or sorority? I like to say this is like the one-stop shop for all of these things. In other student organizations, you can get little pieces of this, but fraternity and sorority, that's the experience where you can get everything. You get that feeling of brotherhood and sisterhood or siblinghood. You get the opportunity to build your leadership development and build some of those soft and hard skills that that you might want to build or create or hone once they leave the university and they start their first professional career. The opportunity for networking is massive. There are so many people across the country who are members of fraternities and sororities, and you can, just because you are a member, you have that innate connection now to say, even if we look at, a member from California, you're still always going to have that connection and that understanding through like your experience. And so you have that ability to network. Fun fact, not specifically at University of Maryland, but one of my first jobs in student affairs was due to networking, due to someone I knew in the fraternity that I'm a part of. And so because of networking, I got my foot in the door to, be able to have an opportunity to do what I do now. And that's led me to the University of Maryland now. Community service, we talked about the 5 hours that are required, but we want to make sure that students understand the value of giving back, whether that is physically hands-on or being able to appreciate the impact and what community impact can look like, and what social change can kind of look like. So they're going to have that opportunity to go about and give back, whether that is cleaning up a yard or a river, or maybe going to a food bank or an animal shelter or something completely different. But the fraternities and the sororities will plan opportunities for the students in their organizations to give back and be able to get some of that community service. Professional development, we talked about leadership development, but there's also that professional development, right? Being able to have opportunities and be in spaces with people that are in your same major, that are in in your same field and be able to develop some of those professional skills that that students are looking for in terms of being able to have a great resume, or understanding how to interview, or having some mock interviews in those spaces. So being able to build some of those professional development pieces. And then finally, educational opportunities. We touched on the chapter expectations and the things that are required each year for each of our organizations, but they get to have that ability to have conversation, dialogue, and understanding around topics that maybe aren't always aware of, that are aware to them, and being able to have conversations no matter what kind of experience they're coming from and what level of knowledge they're coming from, but being able to have open and honest dialogue around some of these topics, and being able to grow and learn through their fraternity and sorority experience. So now I'm going to pass it off to Hamed to kind of share a little bit more around the costs, housing, and our facilities.
All right, so this is probably what most of y'all came here for, to talk about. How much does all of this cost, right? So when it comes to costs, dues vary by organization and by council. So information about dues should be discussed with students before they agree to join any organization. So I could talk a little bit about some of our councils and what that would look like for a range of costs. So for for PHA sororities, that would typically be around 1,100 to about 6,000. That might include housing, that might include some other pieces there. And again, this is just a broad stroke. For our National Panhellenic Council fraternities and sororities, that would cost around 1,000 to 3,000 generally, and that includes different things like dues for the rest of your undergraduate career, different conferences, that kind of stuff. And I would say for our other two councils, it will probably, even though they look different, everyone usually has a package of things that you get from being a part of the organization. So when it comes to housing, so there are housed organizations within the Interfraternity Council and the Panhellenic Association. So members of those house chapters can reasonably expect to live in a chapter facility for a year. So typically within the Panhellenic Association, for example, they'll ask for sophomores or juniors to live in, and Interfraternity Council, that just depends on the chapter and what they would want for that housed experience. But also the costs within living in will typically include a meal plan. So students typically will have meals about 5 days a week, and then there's no service on the weekends. So being able to figure out what does that look like for your Terp to get food out on their own. But great thing is most of these organizations do have houses within the Old Town College Park community, which is right along Baltimore Avenue, also known as Route 1, which has a lot of great restaurants and shops.
I'll also share around cost and housing is that these are really great questions your students should be asking to when they're meeting with members of a fraternity or sorority, or going to an event, or if we have a meet event where all of our fraternities and sororities are going to be there. These are some of the questions that they should be asking. So really do encourage that you're encouraging them to ask those questions. The fraternities and sororities should be sharing and being transparent about the costs, housing requirements, what all of that looks like. But if they're not, it is okay for those students to ask those questions, and they should feel confident and able to ask those questions. If there are some concerns around some of those things, they can always contact Hamed, and we can be able to kind of navigate some of those conversations around housing and fees.
Another thing that I'll add is that a lot of organizations do have payment plans that you and your student can work out with the organization. So they vary. So some can do monthly, some are every semester. It just depends on what the organization is looking for and requiring when it comes to a payment plan. So again, these are conversations that your students should be having with the organizations that they are looking at.
And lastly, around fees and dues and costs, is that organizations need these fees, they need these dues, these membership, the money that they're bringing in, so that they can operate as a chapter, so they can offer different opportunities and benefits for your student. There's also things that they might have in terms of administrative costs from maybe their national board or their headquarters, which is the national organization that kind of manages and supports the local organizations at each campus, each college campus. But dues are important because for them to do the things that they want to do, if they want to have a brotherhood or sisterhood event, if they want to program and do a program, they want to do a philanthropy event, they want to have a formal or some type of party, like these dues go to that so they can have an operational budget so they can do all of these things. So yes, payment plans are a really great offering that organizations will give out to some of the members, but also know that explaining to your students too that paying these fees also allow for you to have the experience that you're looking for.
So I am really, really excited, and actually our whole department is really, really excited to be able to share this with the community. So typically for our organizations in the Multicultural Greek Council and the National Panhellenic Council, they do not have on-campus housing or off-campus housing. But we have been able to advocate and build with them community and a programming space that's called the aggregate. So in Greek, aggregate means a place to gather. So we hope that this space can become a place where our students in MGC and NPHC can gather and be in community with each other. So there are 4 floors full of classroom space, meeting space, office space, programming space, so that these students can be able to be able to have events, be able to have socials or whatever they would want to have that they couldn't get anywhere else because they may have to pay for a room in the Stamp Student Union, for example. So, and also this helps to create exposure to our culturally based organizations being on Fraternity Row, which has been historically an all-white space. So I'm really, really excited to be able to have this, and our students have been able to engage with this space a lot. So to be able to hear from some of our students about how the aggregate is impacting them, I want to share a quick video with you all.
Previously on the University of Maryland College Park's campus, MGC, NPHC, we both did not have this place to fellowship and gather and do such chapter programming and events that other councils such as IFC and PHA have done in the past. Hi everyone, my name is Rochelle Wakefield. I am the president of the National Panhellenic Council, also a member of the Kappa Phi chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am a senior public health science, public policy dual degree with a minor in sustainability, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the aggregate. Moving forward, what we want to stress as a council is unity, and I can say as more organizations, more people come onto our yard, this house gives us the opportunity to come and be as one.
So something that I feel like both of us are very excited about for the aggregate is like having a place for our students to be able to build community and also to create more exposure on culturally based fraternal organizations or CBFOs. As a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, an NPHC organization, like this really gives a spot for students to come out and be able to engage in a space that they haven't felt comfortable before.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Hamed, I'm really excited that NPHC has a space to meet here on Fraternity Row, which is a lot of Greek organizations get together, so I'm really excited to see Black Greek organizations be able to take over the space as well.
One thing my chapter is excited for about the Agora is just having another space to meet. Ever since COVID happened, we didn't really have any in-person spaces that were dependable that we could meet, and it's just great to have that other option to meet there.
Being Greek to me means uplifting the values and traditions of my organization, specifically being service to all mankind. The aggregate really fits into that, as this is something people who came before me have really been pushing for and never really thought we would see at the university. So for us to finally get the house, it means so much.
The aggregate can serve as a space for minorities to come together in fellowship, in a space where there is no judgment, only love.
The Agora means to me a place where we can have this sisterhood, brotherhood, all in one house. We are able to bring each other together, meet each other, and communicate with each other, and have more of a community, and have a community with those in other Greek councils and organizations. We all are trying to achieve the goal, all trying to, reach the campus community as one, as a collective that not a lot of people are used to seeing. It's more than our individual organization that serves a greater good and purpose for everyone.
All right, and more information about the aggregate is located on our website. So going into another big question, how does my student join a fraternity and sorority at Maryland? So we've been talking about these different councils, so I want to be able to break these down for you all before we start talking about the recruitment processes for each one, because all of them are very unique. So first we have our Interfraternity Council, also known as the IFC. So these are our historically white fraternities and men's organizations on campuses. So also to back up, so again, fraternities are typically all men's organizations, and sororities are typically all women's organizations. But if your student does identify not with one of those gender identities, they're still welcome to join. They'll need to have individual conversations with the organizations that they're interested in about what those policies look like. So within the IFC, there are 25 active fraternities within that council. Next is the Multicultural Greek Council, or the MGC, and these are our cultural and identity-based fraternities and sororities. So typically at Maryland, we have a lot of Asian Pacific interests. We have Southeast Asian, we have Desi American. Also, we had a new Muslim sorority that just came to campus. So a really great melting pot, and really and also general multicultural organizations. So if your students are looking to learn about a piece of their identity or other people's identity, this is a really great council to be a part of. And there are 14 active organizations on our campus. Next is the National Panhellenic Council, also known as the NPHC or the Divine Nine. So these are our historically Black fraternities and sororities, which, fun fact, they are celebrating 50 years of being in existence at the university. So really exciting stuff here. And right now we have 6 active organizations. Finally, we have the Panhellenic Association, also known as the PHA. So typically when you think about sororities, you're thinking about this council. There are 16 active organizations within the PHA.
All right, so we're going to start with the Interfraternity Council, or IFC, and kind of talk about, what does it look to how to join an organization there. So how to join an IFC fraternity. So typically their recruitment process lasts for the first 3 weeks of either the fall or the spring semester. So what that would usually look like is that first week of the school semester, we'll even look at in the spring, they might have a Meet the IFC event where all 24, 25 organizations would be out there, and your student would have the ability to learn about each organization by going up to each table and being able to have conversations with the members at those tables. They typically won't start their actual events until the second week. So recruitment will start on January 30th, and it typically ends around February 9th. It's about 2 weeks long. During that time, IFC chapters will have a variety of different events. There might be food involved. So if your student is looking to meet some people, but also eat some good food, They usually have food involved in their events. They might do things around community service or things that that each organization values, but they'll have that sporadically for the second and third weeks of the school semester. At that point is when the organizations will kind of decide which members or which students they want to offer an invitation to, which is called a bid. So those bids can only be extended on or after February 10th. So we want to give an opportunity before fraternities start to invite other people to join their organization. We want to give students about 2.5 weeks to be able to talk to and interact with as many fraternities as possible, right? Because you're never going to know which fraternity you want to join until you meet the members in those organizations. Also being able to learn a little bit more about what the fraternity offers. What are the benefits? Are there different requirements in terms of what are the costs? What are the, are there housing requirements? Are there other requirements? But that's best for a student to go and have those conversations with the members. That's how you're going to know, and how you're going to know if it's the right fit and if it's the right connection. So on February 10th, bids or invites will be extended or offered out to the students, and the students have the ability to accept invitation, and then they would start their new member education process. And at the University of Maryland, we actually, in the Department of Fraternity Sorority Life, we actually have a 6-week maximum of time that they'll be going through new member education. So in those 6 weeks, they'll kind of go through, learn about the fraternity, get to bond with the members, and after 6 weeks, they're initiated, they're active members, they receive all of the rights and benefits of being a member. And then they have the rest of the semester to focus on other things and, in their academics. Within those 6 weeks too, there are obviously opportunities to be able to study and have time where to manage both the fraternity or sorority experience, as well as, their academics and other obligations that they might have. If you want more information about IFC, you can check out their website at ifcumd.com, or you can follow their Instagram at UMDIFC on Instagram for more information and upcoming information for the events such as Meet the IFC, which will happen probably during that first week of the semester starting on January 25th. One of our other councils is the Multicultural Greek Council, also referred to as the MGC, and they go through a different process, which some groups might call membership intake and some groups might call recruitment. So how to join an MGC organization. Realize again, Multicultural Greek Council is the governing body for both fraternities and sororities. So there are 14 different organizations. They all have historic resonance in cultural or identities. So we have Latinx organizations, we have a PETA, right? So Asian Pacific Islander, Desi American. We have multicultural, which view themselves as not just one culture, one identity. And as Hamed also mentioned, we have a Muslim sorority too. So recruitment occurs continuously through the fall and the spring semester. Chapters will host informationals, recruitment weeks, and participate in tabling and other involvement fairs. There's actually one coming in the spring called Second Look Fair. Funny enough, in the fall, there's the First Look Fair. So Second Look Fair is typically where some of our MGC organizations will table and be able to have conversations again about the benefits of joining, expectations, and being transparent about what that process looks like. So if your students are interested in the Multicultural Greek Council, they should attend those recruitment events, regular programs of the chapters to become familiar with the members. They're going to be hosting a bunch of different programs on campus, from really important educational topics and matters to fun social things where they can just get to know the brothers or the sisters or members in those organizations. Information about intake and new member education is given at these programs. If you want to learn more, you can check their social media on Instagram at MGC Terps.
All right, now we're going to talk more about the National Panhellenic Council, NPHC, again, also known as the Divine Nine, and membership intake. So for most of you, you probably know organizations individually and not as the NPHC. So to have a breakdown, some of the active organizations that we have at the university are Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, which is coming this spring, back this spring, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So three of those chapters are reactivating as they're coming back to the university. So talking about how to join an NPHC organization. So NPHC organizations don't really have a recruitment. It's called membership intake. So membership intake will occur continuously throughout the fall and the spring. So they really just depends on when the organization would like to host intake. So chapters will host informational meetings. Sometimes they're known as Rush, sometimes they're known as awareness seminars, or meet the insert organization here. And they're for those who are interested in learning more about how to join. I will say that typically business casual or business professional attire is required for these meetings. So probably want to have some conversations with your student, and if they are wanting to attend, what does that look like for them? So interested students should also attend different events that these organizations have. So just like Jordan was talking about earlier, they're going to have some very serious educational events. They're going to have some social events. And really, that's how you're able to get a feel of every organization and seeing what would be the best fit. So one thing that I always hear from people is that, like, well, I want to be a part of this organization because, you know, I'm a legacy and I have a lot of, you know, people that were in this organization. Really look at the organizations that are at Maryland. That is something that I will suggest, because Maryland will be the home of your student and for their organization. So they want to make sure. So I always say people don't join organizations, people join people. But informational meetings are usually held toward the beginning of the semester, and also they're advertised in two ways. They're either advertised on social media, or they're on physical flyers that are posted on bulletin boards around campus, in major classroom buildings, in the STAMP Student Union. Also, they'll also be posted outside of our suite in the department. So we're located also in the STAMP Student Union, just around the corner from the Roy Rogers where the microwaves are. Your students should definitely know about that. So if you want more information about NPHC, also we'll be hosting NPHC 101 next semester. Please visit UMD NPHC on Instagram. And now we want to cover the Panhellenic Association and their recruitment process. So for Panhellenic sororities, there are two ways to be able to join. So there's either primary recruitment or something called continuous open bidding, and they're very different from each other. So primary recruitment is where all organizations in the Panhellenic Association will be recruiting. So at Maryland, we have something called a deferred process. So we actually have our recruitment in the spring. Typically, it's during the first 2 weekends of the semester, but because of like how this spring semester is kind of set up, we have it during the first 2 weekends of February. So February 3rd through the 5th, and also February 10th through the 12th. So your student will go through 4 rounds where they'll be able to talk to members of different organizations. So values round, they'll be able to talk to up to all 16 chapters, philanthropies up to 12, community, which is formerly sisterhood, is up to 7, and then preference is up to 2. So every round they'll be participating in what's called a mutual selection process. So there's a computer system that we use where your student, which is also known as a potential new member, will be selecting the organizations that they would like to go back to for the next round. And the sororities within the PHA are doing the same. So we have this computer system to help marry the two and being able to create matchups for each student in each sorority. Interested students that are interested students that want to go through recruitment have to register online by noon on Thursday, January 26th to participate in 2023 primary recruitment. There's a $25 fee that includes access to the computer system, a t-shirt, food, and other fun things that will happen during recruitment. So the next part is continuous open bidding. So continuous open bidding only happens for sororities that have space in their chapters to be able to welcome in new members. So that means not every sorority will recruit during continuous open bidding. Continuous open bidding is also known as COB. COB is also more relaxed with individual chapter events such as craft nights, yoga events, ice cream dates, coffee dates, just to be able to get to know people on a more one-on-one basis. So in this spring, COB will occur after bid day. So bid day, it happens on Sunday, February 12th, and that's when people will get, people that participate in the process will get a bid or an invitation into a sorority. In fall 2023, continuous open bidding will begin the first week of classes. So if you have some more questions about individual questions about how to join an organization, what are the different nuances between each council, you can definitely contact us as the council advising team. So that's Tyler Huddleston, our assistant director for advising and programming, or myself or Jordan. So Jordan is the advisor for the IFC and the MGC, and I'm the primary advisor for the NPHC and the PHA. And also wanted to give other DFSL family resources so that you can help your Terp make the best decision for themselves when it comes to being engaged with our community. If you have any general questions, you can also send it to greekterps@umd.edu. Plus, we have an amazing For Families page on our brand new DFSL website. So you can visit fsl.umd.edu, and also not only we have the For Families page, but we have grade reports. We also have chapter expectations policies and other things pertinent to the fraternity and sorority community at the university. So now we are wrapping up our presentation, but definitely would love to be able to engage in any questions as we're wrapping this up.
Great, thank you all so much. So I know questions have been coming in through the Q&A, which is great. And so Jordan and Hamed have been kind of tag teaming those and responding to those. There were some that came in that I did want to address for the group as a whole, because it is something that we get asked often. And the first is, can you share about what it means for a student to be a legacy and what, if any, impact that has on the rush recruitment or intake process?
Yeah, so I can break that down at least for the councils that I advise. So again, I advise the Panhellenic Association and the National Panhellenic Council. So for the Panhellenic Association, I will tell you, you're probably thinking about schools in the SEC in the South that like really take that seriously. At Maryland, we don't. So we don't even really look at letters of recommendation. Also, a lot of sororities in the PHA nationally have gone away with their legacy policies. So we are solely coming in based on the strength of who you are and being able to create relationships with people in those chapters. Now, on the opposite end with the National Panhellenic Council, legacies are important. So sometimes they are weighted more highly throughout the selection process for intake, but every organization does that differently, and you'll need to have a conversation with the organizations that you're interested in.
I think Hamed kind of shared pretty much what it looks like from an IFC and MGC perspective too. From an MGC perspective, it's going to be very similar to how we explained NPHC legacies. It's going to have a little bit more weight, but it's going to depend based off the organization. From an IFC perspective, It's not something that people are going to, it's not something that you should, intentionally bring up. I think I shared in the comments. If it comes up organically and you say, oh yeah, my dad is a member of, Alpha, 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 it's going to come up in conversation. But I would say that you're not going to, at least at University of Maryland, you're not going to intentionally mention, hey, I'm a part of this, or I'm a legacy of this organization, and that's going to give you more points or more credit.
Thank you. There were also a couple questions, and a lot of the questions that were sent in ahead of time were around the housing. And how does the housing process work for students who may be applying through the housing and dining agreement through resident life, and they're also wanting housing in one of the fraternity or sorority houses? How do you all work with that process at all?
Oh yeah, so for the groups that are housed, right? So our PHA and IFC organizations are the ones that are housed. The ones that are on campus, so the ones that are on Fraternity Row and in the Graham Cracker, what they're going to do is recruitment is going to be after they're already on campus, right? So what they would have to do is they would have to request a petition for release, and they would do that through their Star Res, which is a residential life portal that they would do, and then resident life would review those requests, and that's kind of how that process would work. Now, once somebody joined that organization and was interested in living in one of their chapter facilities, all that information would be explained to them by the chapter itself. So they should be able to get instructions on that, but to give some, brief explanation is that they would have to submit a petition for release from their residential room on campus to one of the fraternity sorority facilities.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Jordan, I see another question. Do you have to live in an IFC fraternity house if you do join?
Oh, you definitely aren't required to live in an IFC fraternity house if you do join, but each organization is going to be a little bit different, right? For some of our chapter facilities, it's 20, 30 people that can be occupants in the facility. So there's probably a likelihood that you might be asked or encouraged to live in their chapter facility. I will share that when I was an undergrad, I lived in my chapter fraternity in an IFC fraternity for 2 years, and it was one of the best experiences of my life because I got to always wake up and talk to or hang out with like 11 other people that lived in that space. Also, it's usually the central hub for that fraternity. So you're always going to have members popping in, popping out. So honestly, it was a great way to interact and really build some of my relationships and my friendships that I have now, to this day. And that's similarly my understanding in the IFC community here at Maryland.
Thank you. Can you talk about if a fraternity or sorority or just any of the organizations, if they are on probation, is that noted anywhere, and what kind of restrictions do they have if they have that probationary status?
Yeah, I can touch on that one too. So anyone who's on probationary recognition, that means that they were unsatisfactory into some of the chapter expectations that we ask. For that probationary recognition, it's a lot of educational outcomes where if they missed a training, they would have to redo that training with maybe an additional percentage, or it's always going to be something that's going to be making sure that there's some educational outcome to it. Chapters are still in good standing as long as they're in good standing with their national or regional organizations. But for those that are unrecognized, there's some slight discrepancy. So they're unrecognized by the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. So there could be an organization who is unrecognized by the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life, and on our website, you can go on to fsl.umd.edu and see those statuses. They were removed, and for probably a pretty good reason. But an organization, because of the freedom of association, they can still be a part of our Student Organization Resource Center, or SORC, and still be a student organization. But they wouldn't be under the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. They wouldn't get the benefits and all of that kind of is entailed of being an organization in the fraternity and sorority life community at Maryland, of the organizations that are a part of our community.
Thank you for that. And then there was another question regarding jobs on campus, and how is that received by the chapters during the recruitment process?
I think that's a really good question. So students are actually welcome of their whatever status that they have on campus. If they are an employee, if they have a little bit more challenging schedules, it's not something that people are looking at and saying, oh, well, you have a job, you can't be a part of our organization. And a small portion of our students do work at these jobs to pay their dues. So definitely, I would say if people are interested in joining and they do have an on-campus job, they're also they're also very flexible when it comes to this. So I think being able to again, empowering your student to have those conversations with the chapter and saying, I would love to join. I do have a job. How can I make this work with like my my work schedule, is something that's of importance.
Absolutely. And I will share that just across the board, students who have employment on campus, everyone on campus, the employers know that these are students first, and so they want them to have that student experience. So I kind of echo what Hamed said. And then there was another question that was indicated at Discuss Live, and that is, who oversees or supervises the chapters and its expectations? And how is the staff in your department kind of in the know of what's going on?
Well, for Fraternity and Sorority Life, we take it from a bunch of different lenses. So at the University of Maryland, we have the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. We have 11 full-time staff members and 18 graduate students that make up that 29 staff team for the department, where we support our chapters. That means that we're holding them accountable to those expectations. So they are submitting evaluations for the education or the programs or things that they're doing. So we hold them accountable to that. But we also are meeting one-on-one with the chapter leadership, so the presidents of each organization, and just checking in on how things are going, right? How are their members doing? How is the organization operating? What challenges are coming up, and how can we be there to support and be helpful in that? So we have a large staff and a large amount of people that are there to support. They also have advisors. So they have volunteers that might be members of their organization that should be supporting them too. And then finally, they have regional, state, national organization staff members. Those folks are also checking in and holding them accountable to the requirements of their organizations. So it's really a threefold, and kind of taking it almost in a triangle of support when it comes to the fraternity and sorority experience, so that they're being able to experience the benefits of fraternity and sorority, but also we're there to be the guide rails to make sure that they're being held accountable and making sure that it's a safe and enjoyable experience.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some staff from your department that live in the houses with the with the organizations. That's correct?
Yes, so we have 18 graduate assistants, also known as graduate resident directors, that live in our in our university facilities, and we have 2 full-time staff members that also live on. When it comes to those that are off campus, each organization will hire someone through their process, and also they're vetted through our department just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Awesome. Well, that is all of the questions through the Q&A. So we wrapped up right on time with a nice little bow on top. I want to thank you both, Hamed and Jordan, for taking the time to present with us today. For the families that have joined us today, if you do have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life or myself. I think on the next slide, or maybe the slide before, there's contact information for their office. Yes, so Greek Terps at umd.edu. Feel free to reach out to them. As I bring this webinar to a close, I do want to remind everyone that a recording of this will be available on our Terp Family YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, type in Terp Family, and you'll find our channel. There will be a recording there, so you're welcome to review it, share it with your student, and have some discussions. I definitely want to point out this website here on their page. There's tons of questions that you can share with your student and kind of walk through the process with your student to get them thinking about the things that are important and things that they should consider before joining an organization. You'll also receive an email later today with a link to the recording as well as a survey. So please let us know how we did, how we can improve, as well as any other topics that you'd be interested in learning about. I welcome your feedback and your thoughts. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.